Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Good afternoon, everybody. You all back from lunch now? Good. Well, I heard this morning one of our fabulous young ladies said, I feel all my joints when I dance. I do the same. I've got the same. I've got arthritis in both toes and in the left knee, and I've got a little bit of cervical spine problems in here. So I really feel all my joints nowadays. Ladies and gentlemen, the task that I've been given is a task actually that's quite dear to my heart, and it's entitled Technique, a God or a Guide. Now, even the late Alex Moore, who we all know was the author of the Revised Technique with assistance, and he always said to me, he said, the technique is correct, but it is a minimum guide. And I think we should know, and as I develop through the lecture, I will try to show you what he meant in those words. But I'm sure everybody here has read my notes. Haven't you? Right. Now, I would just like to highlight 4 of the paragraphs, because some of you may remember about 2.5 years ago, Bill Irvin wrote in the Dance News that he had adjudicated at a national championship, and he was absolutely horrified at the standard of the technique throughout the championship. And I agreed with him, and I supported his article a couple of weeks later in Dance News. And his article was entitled, I Will Not Throw the Technique Book Out of the Window. And I think, ladies and gentlemen, that is something that we should remember. You have heard constantly this morning about the development. What are we developing from? You saw that wonderful lecture this morning through the evolution of the last 40 years of Latin, how it started. Of course, it is so easy for us as adjudicators or reporters to throw the blame on sometimes the young shoulders of the competitor. But I often wonder, ladies and gentlemen, if their coaches are as knowledgeable in the right departments as they should be. The pioneers and the authors of our technique, going back to the 1920s, they must have been fantastic. Some of us had the opportunity of working with those people in their latter years, and they must have had unbelievable foresight to know how dancing was going to develop through the 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, and now into the 2000s. They came up with CBM, contrary body movement, not contra-body movement, contrary body movement. They knew that had to be done to develop turn when 2 bodies were standing together. They came up with CBMP, contrary body movement position. A position that enables 2 bodies to stay in a beautiful body line when outside partner. Very much used in tango, of course, in line. And of course, when dancing figures like the reverse pivot, which I think is the most abused figure I've seen danced today, and the slip pivot. So they had great foresight. Sway. We're going to talk a lot about sway as well. Sway. What do you think about sway? I think the best description I had about sway, or the information given to me, was that as the body swings, the balance of the body has to change. I was told that during the swing, the bodies are in fact out of control. And sway is used to temporarily regain the balance in order to perhaps redirect a new swing. We will demonstrate that for you. And the last paragraph I have was that the technique is internationally accepted, so we all know it, or we should all know it. But of course, some dancers, especially in the areas of sway, we have some dancers that are quite conservative with their sway, and we have other dancers that really love tremendous amount of swing and sway. And of course, good swingers need sway, so we need good flexibility, correct posture. Now, I think this type of lecture, you can't sort of see what always words describe. So I thought it would be rather nice if I brought a partner onto the floor. And to assist me today, I have a young lady, and she's dressed beautifully to match my ensemble. In powder blue, ladies and gentlemen, would you welcome Amanda Duckman, please? Now, hello, I've turned that page over once, and I'm not nervous. Right. Of course, there are many techniques that we have to master over and above the technique that we would use for professional examinations. I feel, ladies and gentlemen, that, and I'll say this because I can get on the next plane home to Australia and nobody knows where I live. So, since we introduced amateur teachers, I believe that the feeling for professionals to study the technique and take the examinations for the reasons to make them knowledgeable professionals is being neglected. I really feel that. So we have to know, if we're going to get the best out of our couples, we have to know how to get the best out of them. And it's so interesting, and I am so happy, ladies and gentlemen, that I came from an era that, as I said before, we had the opportunity to have lessons with those wonderful Josephine Bradleys and Phyllis Haylors and such like the teachers of those who gave us an insight. We knew what we were developing from. And they would always say, and I remember the great Frank Ford saying to me, Anthony, he said, you have to master this, and when you do, you will look so much better than we did in our day. So they were always wanting to see development. Now, the first action I want to take is a glass of water.
Later.
Let's think about CBM. What is CBM? We know it's I often say that, but what is CBM? Oh, it's contrary body movement. I said, what is it? Contrary body movement. Right. Contrary body movement is an action where we would use, if I'm going to the left, I would be using the opposite side of the body to the foot that's moving to the inside of the turn, so I can help and develop the turn. But the most important thing, ladies and gentlemen, is that I lead it. Now, in our technique, usually always the first step of the turn says CBM on 1. You remember that? Now, if I want it on 1, I've got to produce it between the preceding step and 1. So if I do CBM, it's too late. It's too late. So from my preceding action through the supporting leg and through the rotation, I lead her to the inside of the turn. So we're keeping the shoulders beautifully balanced and in a light position. Now, because sometimes our young and very energetic and very talented young dancers And this is where, ladies and gentlemen, we have to be so responsible for how we develop those people, is that the tendency is that if, for example, if they're going into an open telemark, it's just a thrust and a turn. And therefore, the poor girl who is desperately trying to do a beautiful heel turn is rocked back onto the heels like this and is out of balance on the turn. Now, what I always try to imagine is that having introduced the CBM, my dance instinct tells me where I have placed Amanda's right foot. I then make sure I guide her right foot back to her left foot, and I almost feel I want to caress her heel turn. 1, 2, 3, 1. So that she can time it for me. Now, boys, remember, a lady does a heel turn for our convenience, so that we can turn. So I think they deserve the best treatment on the way in, don't you? Okay? Now, so often, you see, you get this, what I call thrust and turn, and you can see what's happened. Immediately her back's tightened up. Now, if we now think of the combination of the energy that we may have had from the preceding figure, the introduction of the CBM, and the swing and the sway, the motive power of the dancer is at its full. So we never put that energy there. We guide them and put the energy around the heel turn. Is that correct? If nobody nods their head, I think I might... Is that correct? Right, okay. So CBM is vital, absolutely vital. Now, let's think about CBMP. Now, CBMP is a foot position, isn't it? It is not a body action. So, for example, let's think of our feather step. From here, we make our preparation. And from here, I'm introducing the CBM so that I have it on 1. Right? Now, look where my body is. I've automatically got a left side lead. And if I hold that position, I'm automatically in CBMP. Now, so often we see a feather step danced with little or no CBM, and we get something like this. Right? The old hips go zig ways that way, and they come back. And then what happens is, right? And the girl who's now been put over here does a heel turn, something like that. So again, ladies and gentlemen, think about what we're trying to create. Now, no, that's wrong. Otherwise, I'd have been perfect from birth. No. At the later stages of my career, I was very aware of the line I was leaving behind me and how good I was making the girl look in front of me. So imagine if, as we see it now, and you'll see all these couples, they start their foxtrot all in the corner. I don't know why they all do that, but they do, right? And you may be judging there, you see. So you get some of them, they start like this, and you see them go away. La-da-da-dee, la-dee-da-da. And you say, right, I hope he enjoys his supper because that's all he's got left tonight. Right. Now, from there, you may get somebody else who has a great feel for this beautiful body in front of him, and he guides her. He guides her, and he opens the door on this side, and he keeps that beautiful line from the elbows through the drape of his tail jacket, and the tails are still hanging to a point. I had this great fear that my tails would open. Right? So always imagine the line that you are leaving behind you. Don't always think about moving. Right? Because we've already heard today that swing, and it was beautifully demonstrated this morning by Timothy Housen. Right? You actually saw his swing came from there. and he finished a step. He finished a step. Pass, pass, pass there. Now we start a new energy from here. We start the rotation, the CBM, the rise and the fall is now correct. Now, I'm trying to cover these aspects because time is to do what 80 or 90 years work in 30 minutes is an impossibility, isn't it? If we think now about the footwork, because in my notes I mention about footwork and feet and so on, and we've heard of it this morning, absolutely vital. But you could have the strongest feet in the world, but if your body weight is not in the correct place at the right time, you will have bad footwork, and bad rise and fall, and bad timing, and I am not afraid to say that many of the top couples I see in the foxtrot today are out of time. Because, I thought I'd get a clap for that. The swing, the turn, the release, I complete a step, I'm rising onto the toes. We rise onto the toes. Now here I'm using the energy from Amanda. If I put energy in now, I'll lose her. So I just absorb her and present her. And now I can follow her, and there is some rise and some sway in the three-step. Now, I don't know really what people are trying to prove, that they're the slowest on the floor, but that doesn't impress me because the foxtrot, and if you read notes, ladies and gentlemen, at a congress and cross-reference them to other lecturers, you will have a lecture tomorrow by Peter Eggleton when he's talking about the foxtrot rhythm, so he obviously agrees with me. Is that so far? Thank you very much. Right. So I want to see the quicks as much as I want to see the slows. I don't want to see slow, 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 slow. I want to see the release and the rise to the feet, the rise to the feet, the rise to the feet, the rise to the feet. Now, to do that, ladies and gentlemen, what I keep in my mind is, once again, telling you I'm trying my best. It may not be good enough, but I'm trying my best to always think, if in a bar of music, I will swing up to the ball of your left foot. Slow, quick, quick. I know where that is. And if I put her there, that's not bad, is it? Can you stay with that for a half hour? Right. If I've placed her so beautifully on that foot, for a millisecond now, she can control and absorb the timing of my turn. She can help. Yeah? So it's so important that we do get to the right rhythms. Right? It's no good seeing that flat foxtrot. So I got that off my chest. And it's the same in the waltz. What I call telescopic legs. They go on forever. Right? Now, how can you get yourself out of that? Or how can you get a girl out of that? Right? So if we're thinking waltz, again, we take up hold and we absorb the music, and I invite something towards me. I invite something there. I ask her to feel that swing coming from there. 1, 2, whoops, there's those Latins, they put this bloody oil on the floor. Right. Can't dance without oil. Right. I think the British Latin should be on rubber mats. Right. Let's try this down here a bit. If it happens a second time, it'll be your fault. Right. So from the absorbing there, we swing that energy to a complete rise. Now, this is my favourite one. 4, 5, 6. Right? That's the favourite, isn't it? Now, if, for example, I was showing a natural turn for the purposes of an examination, I would say lower at the end of 3, and I'd release that foot. So now that foot's in position just to receive the foot so that I can pivot on it. It's not a step. Right? And it's so easy then for the lady to be able to to get round me. So if I do that, what am I doing? Look, I'm positioning, I'm turning. 4, 5, 6. Yeah? But don't make it a step and don't drop out of it. Good. Now, I very quickly, half an hour. What is a half an hour about? I've got 5 minutes left. Tango. This dance has got to have so much CBMP, hasn't it? Because every time I step forward on my left foot, I'm in CBMP. Then I've got a right side lead. Then I've got CBMP if I'm doing 2 walks and a link. Right, so tell me, ladies and gentlemen, how do I get in CBMP if I start like this? It's square as a box. And this foot is already in her space, so she's only going to get pushed over. All right? So, tango, we have that body connection, and I squeeze her into that position. So if I have started, ladies and gentlemen, facing diagonally wall, and if I just make about 1/8 of a turn on a little slip action, like a 4-step change, from there, now I have the position. Well, you've given me enough top, because at the studio the other day, your partner criticised us. Not enough presentation. Yeah, well, us. Right. So from there, ladies and gentlemen, I absorb that shape so that when I start, I'm in CBMP, I have a right side lead, and when it comes to the link, we're still nice and compact, and then the speed of the link comes off I'm reflex reaction then, because we are so together without pressures. Yeah? So, hips. I think there's a lot of mystery about hips, and really and truly there shouldn't be a mystery, because they can't do very much. If you walk, they just transfer over your feet. Right? If you turn a corner, they do that. They don't sit back, and they don't push forward, and they don't go out to the side. Only when you see the Latin girls walk off the floor after the last round. Right? But, so, ladies and gentlemen, now in the tango, it is such a dance, it's such a story of legs, isn't it? Now, for example, if I take a 5-step, what I see so often is so much that they go, da-dum-ba-dee-da-dee-da-da-ba-da. I've dropped something. Right. It's too much action. Now, the tango really is a very, very quiet dance between the man and the lady. Right? I want to caress her into my body. Then if I take a 5-step, I don't move my body around, I move onto a leg. Now from there later, I don't do anything with my hips, I move my foot into position. When it's there, we transfer weight. She can get her foot in position, right, to there, placing that foot under the body, and we don't move the feet anymore, just the lady, she's allowed to swivel on this one, but that's it. Now, when we take the first step of the promenade, we have a step. But when they all finish like this, and then of course they say, you're late in promenade. Of course you're late if half of you's back in the car park, right? So, we dance 2 walks and a link. And well, the singing was good, even if the dancing wasn't. Now, ladies and gentlemen, I have to be very quick, because this is one thing as well important to the technique, and it was so instilled into us when Faye and I were dancing. And it's about the lady's footwork in tango when she's going backwards. If she's in that position, and with the music as it is written in 2/4, not 4/4. Now people say, well, we get 4/4 tangos. I don't give a monkeys. If they give me a 4/4 tango, I'll put a 2/4 feeling into it. Right? Now, if she walks back on that foot, she favours the little toe. If she walks back on that, she's inside edge of ball heel. Right? Because she's got a left side lead. When she dances the link from here, she will place that foot and release that heel. She will not do a swivel on that foot. Well, you can laugh, darling, But that's what happens. And then the first step of the promenade goes like that. And the next fault you're told about, you're too open in promenade, so now they try and keep it closed and they can't get through. Promenade position is a V-shaped position, with the lady's left side comfortably behind the man's right hip, so that she gets the speed on a very small base. The next step can then be taken to the side, right? And remember, it's a direction and an alignment. I don't want to see toes pointing down the line of dance, because when that happens, the girl will swivel to come back. She'll swivel on that foot. Right. Thank you very much. Could you give me some tango music, please? I'm finished then. Right. This is a nice old Blackpool tango. I don't know whether it's written in 6, 8, 4, 4 or what. I couldn't give a man. Right. Just have to swing off.
Ladies and gentlemen, all the way from Australia to impart 50 or 60, or did you say 80 or 90 at one stage, Anthony, years of knowledge into half an hour. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm sure you'll agree, it's a man who not only has the knowledge, but he knows how to impart that knowledge and do it extremely clearly for everyone to understand. Please bring back onto the floor our expert, Mr. Anthony Hurley.